Hello and welcome to the fourth tutorial in my vlog. In this tutorial, I'll explain how to install and administer a Chef server. There are various architectures to choose from when deploying the Chef server. For each one, I'll discuss their typical use cases to give you a better idea which one you should choose to deploy in your environment. Capacity planning also plays an important role when deciding which architecture you should deploy. Before I get into any deployments, I'll also briefly talk about Chef Manage. You may not need it, but it's good to know it's available and can really help you out if you're just getting started with Chef. After a light introduction to Chef Manage, the first deployment I'll be doing will be a standalone instance. This way I can jump right into administering the Chef server and deploying cookbooks without focusing too much on the installation. Finally, I'll go through a quick installation of the remaining Chef architectures to show you what that looks like. So there are three architectures to choose from when deploying the Chef server. A standalone instance will satisfy most deployment scenarios and are typically used when scale and availability are not a concern. These are perfect for testing in development environments and run off of a single server. Tiered setups are deprecated, but I still want to mention them because of their smaller footprint when compared to highly available setups, as well as their ability to still meet certain requirements. Generally, you should consider deploying a tiered or highly available architecture for large-scale deployments, for restricting access to data components for meeting PCI DSS or HIPAA security regulations, or when you need to strategically deploy Chef servers across multiple physical networks. Tiered deployments and highly available deployments are able to consist of any number of front-end servers. The major difference between these two models is the number of backend servers they consist of. Tiered deployments will only have a single backend server, and if that server fails, then your deployment becomes unavailable. In contrast, highly available deployments consist of exactly 3 backend servers, and when one of those servers fails, another server steps in to take its place. When sizing up the servers for Chef, you need to have an idea of how many nodes your deployment will consist of, as well as how frequently they will be executing the Chef client. CCR stands for Chef Client Runs, and you can use this metric to determine the proper size for each server in your deployment. These are also outlined on the server overview page of Chef's documentation. As you can see here, a standalone instance is still able to support a pretty significant amount of servers running the Chef client when it's sized properly. For larger deployments consisting of many nodes, a single standalone instance is no longer feasible. At this point, you may want to consider partitioning your nodes across multiple standalone instances or opting to deploy to tiered or highly available architectures instead. As you continue to scale up the size of your deployment with these architectures, front-end servers can be added to accommodate for the additional load. Chef Manage. Chef Manage is deprecated and no longer under active development, but it is still available. It enables the management of nodes, data bags, roles, environments, and cookbooks through a user-friendly web interface. So if you're still familiarizing yourself with the command line, I highly recommend checking it out. If you do go forward with the installation, you're going to want to put it on the standalone instance or the front-end instances of your deployment. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with the deployment. I've already SSH'd into the Chef server where I've downloaded the installation package, so first I'll install the package. Next, we'll run reconfigure to have Chef apply the initial configurations, and this may take a few minutes. Accept the license. And now we just wait. Alright, finally, we'll update the firewall so my workstation can remotely administer the Chef server. Let's go ahead and check the health check as well and make sure that everything looks okay. Okay, it looks good. So now that the installation is complete, I'll create an administrative user and associate that user with an organization. Now, I've already installed the Chef development kit on my workstation, which includes the knife utility for running administrative commands. The next thing I need to do is configure knife with my user's private key and Chef URL. This is the configuration that we need. Knife will look for the config.rb file in the .chef folder of your current working directory and will recursively search up directories until it finds one. So on my workstation, I'll create .chef. I'll create config.rb. And then make sure to set the client key and client username, as well as the URL here. Copy my private key from the Chef server here. All right. Now I need to do knife SSL fetch to add the certificate to the trusted certs folder for knife. You can also run knife SSL check to verify whether or not it's already been added to the trusted certificates. Looks like it has. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and create a cookbooks folder. And for this demo, I'm going to be using the Learn Chef HTTPD cookbook that you use on the Chef learning modules. Let's also upload this cookbook to the Chef server. If we list our cookbooks, we should now see it. Now let's go ahead and bootstrap our target server. Bootstrapping a server basically will just install the Chef client. I need to modify the host file here on the target. Doesn't know about where the Chef server is. Let's go ahead and run that bootstrap again to make sure it was successful. It already exists because I just ran it. Okay, looks good. Now if we run knife node list, you can now see that that is bootstrapped. Perfect. Okay, let's add the Learn Chef HTTPD cookbook to the run list. just the name of the node. Okay, the run list is added. If I did a knife node show chef target, I should see that the run list is there. Okay, it's there. Now at this point, Chef client hasn't actually run this cookbook yet. I could do this by going directly to the Chef target server and running Chef client manually, or I could remotely do it from my workstation using the knife SSH command. Just to show you, if I run curl localhost, there is no web server running. So let's go ahead and run the remote knife SSH command to run the cookbook. Okay, it doesn't appear that knife SSH is using the SSH agent that I have the private key on, so I'll just go here and run it manually. Perfect. If you notice here, this is the web page that it will be serving up. So if I do curl localhost again, there it is. Okay, now let me show you what Chef Manage looks like. It's pretty easy to install. Go back to the Chef server here and run install Chef Manage. Okay, now I need to run a reconfigure. And then let's also run a manage controller reconfigure. All right, now if I pull this server up in my web browser, we'll get the Chef Manage interface. Let's go ahead and sign in with our user. All right, so you can see under nodes here, this is our Bootstrap server. It's got some things like the FQDN and the IP. You can see its run list and the Learn Chef HTTPD cookbook there. You can see a list of cookbooks under policies, roles, data bags, environments, clients. And under administration, you can see our organization, users, groups, as well as global permissions. All right, that's it for the standalone instance demo. I'll go ahead and quickly run through the other Chef architecture installs just to give you an idea what that looks like. So I'll go ahead and shut down this server now, as well as our Chef target. I'm going to go back to our fresh snapshot here for Chef target. I'm going to spin up these two servers for the front end and back end for the tiered model. I'm just going to have one server for each. Okay. So for the tiered deployment, we need to start from the backend server. On the backend server, I've already downloaded the package, so I'll go ahead and install it. While we're waiting for that to install, I'll just point out in the backend configuration, you're going to need to replace, the server name, the IP address for the server. If there's a VIP involved in the backend for this, which to me it doesn't make sense to have a VIP since it's only ever going to be a single server for the tiered model, make sure to change that. And as well as the external facing interface name, make sure to change that. And then it's got to know about the front end instances, so change the server name there, as well as the IP address, and finally the front end VIP name if you have one of those. All right, so this configuration is going to belong in the etc opscode chef server RB configuration. So I'll go ahead and paste that. And this server name. What's the IP of the server? This is the one. Going to be the same IP and the interface name. Okay, let's go to our front end server here. I'm just scanning over everything here to make sure it looks good. Don't have any other front end servers. All right, let's save that. Now I need to run reconfigure to apply that configuration. Accept the license. And the first time reconfigure usually takes a little bit. Okay, now I'll configure the backend host firewall. All right, next I need to install Chef server on the front end server. After this, I gotta copy all the contents from the etc opscode folder from the backend to the front end. Oops, fix that. Okay, looks good. Now I'll run a reconfigure. Accept the license. Finally, we'll configure the front-end firewall. All right, now we can check the health check. Looks good. Let's also check it on the back end. No failures on the front end indicates that the back end looks healthy, but you can also hit this health check URL on the back end. Okay, so that's how the tiered installation is complete. From this point, you would create your users and organization just like we did with the standalone instance and configure your knife client. All right, so let's go ahead and shut down these servers. All right, finally, we're going to set up the highly available architecture. For the highly available architecture, you want to start from a single backend server. So let's go ahead and get onto one. And now let's install the Chef backend package. And configure the backend host firewall. Now we need to set the Chef backend RB configuration in the etc Chef backend folder. The only line I need in this configuration is the publish address with the IP of the server. If you have servers on the back end or front end that are participating in different networks, you also need to apply this configuration to let the server know about the other networks. While that's creating the cluster, I'm going to go ahead and install the backend package and set this configuration for the other backend servers. Oops. Let me install the package first. Okay, looks like the first backend server is finished. So now I need to copy the etc Chef backend secrets JSON configuration from this server to the other backend servers. That file is required basically to join the other nodes in the cluster. Okay. Make sure I apply this configuration. Okay, and then we just run the chef backend control join cluster command using the secrets file that we just copied over. oops, I left out the IP of the backend server. So that goes there. Okay, now we should be good. I'll wait for this to finish joining. Okay, I didn't apply the host firewall for the other two backend servers, so I need to do that in order for these to be able to join the cluster successfully. So let me do that real quick. Okay, there we go. Go back on the first one here and apply it here. Okay, backend host firewall is set up. Let's see if this succeeds. There it goes. Okay, and now let's join the last one. All right, all three nodes on the backend are set up, so let's do some status checks. Okay, everything looks good there. You can also run chef backend control cluster status, and we can see who the leaders are. It looks like the first backend server is the leader. All right, now it's time to set up the front end server. So let's go ahead and use one of these other tabs and get on the front end. Okay. Now you're going to use one of the backend servers to generate the configuration for the front end server. So I'm just going to run that from the first backend server here. Copy that configuration over to that front end server. Okay, there it is. So now let's install Chef Server Core on the front end. Alright, now I'm just going to move this generated configuration file to the ops code chefserver.rb. I'll overwrite what's there. Let's go ahead and configure the firewall. And then let's run the reconfigure. Accept the license. And let's wait for this to finish the installation. If you had other front-end servers, you would copy the Etsy ops code private chef secrets JSON from the first front-end server to each subsequent front-end server's Etsy ops code directory. And then you would also need to create a file called var opt opscode upgrades migration level, as well as the var opt opscode bootstrapped file. Once you do that, you're going to also need to generate a config for that other front-end server from your back-end server, and then you should be able to run the reconfigure from on the other front ends. In this example, I'm only doing one front end, so I don't need to do any of that. All right, now let's run a status check on the front end. Okay, everything looks good. So at this point, you would create the user and organization on this front-end server and proceed just like you would as if it was a standalone instance, configuring your knife client, uploading your cookbooks, and deploying to your target servers. That concludes this chef tutorial. Thank you very much for watching.